Hey guys, I want to tell you about a story. I was 8 years old and was on a greyhound by myself for the very first time. Just to give you a little backstory, my mom was like 14 when she had me, and my mom decided that I should live with my grandmother. And over the years, I kind of bounced back and forth between my mom and grandma. I think my grandma was trying to say, hey, her daughter, my mom's name's Hope, go ahead and your kid, you're older now. And then sometimes I think my mom thought she was ready, but when it all came down to it, just my mom wasn't ready. And so I spent a lot of years going back and forth. But this is the first time I went on a greyhound. I was 8 years old, living in Winchester, Virginia. And I would go to a greyhound station that was in my town. And my grandmother gave me two suitcases, a big one and a small one. And she gave me $50. And she said, spend this wisely. You're on the greyhound for 4.5 days until you get to California. So just spend your money wisely. Do not run out of money. I said, okay. And when I got put on that bus, when I walked on, they opened up and I get on and you hear them close. The lights are dark because it was like 10 o'clock at night. And seeing nothing but adults, like 98% adults, and then maybe early teenagers, late teenagers, still adults, was a very eye-opening and very sobering moment at 8. And I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I just remember my grandma telling me not to talk to anybody and spend my money wisely. Well, of course, I didn't not talk to anybody. And of course, we'll get to it in a little bit, I didn't spend my money wisely. So like when we first get on the bus, we're going through like Wytheville, Virginia, Roanoke, Richmond, and we're starting to make our way down south. And we get to Memphis, Tennessee, an awesome bus station. When you walk through, there's a whole bunch of glass doors, and you walk through, you hit the left, there's the arcade, and you look right in front of you, there's these seats. Now, some of you guys who are older will know what I'm talking about. They had the little TV, black and white TV screens. If you put a quarter in it, it gave you like 10 or 15 minutes. I became best friend with those over the years because, just to give you I went on a greyhound probably about 50 times from the age of 8 to 15. And then my last trip was when I was 21. But this is really about my first time. Well, when I get there, we have a 4-hour layover. And when you're on a bus, you have to get off you don't just stay on one bus from Virginia to California. You get on about 30 different buses. Could be a small town, could be a big town. By the time I got to Tennessee, I had about 3 different bus changes. Had a bus change within 2 hours of my trip in Wytheville, one in Richmond. And every time you go get your luggage, and some towns were better than the others, and the drivers would be like, let me see your ticket, see the name, and see the name on the luggage, and then they give it to you. Some towns, they just threw your luggage out, and you looked and you grabbed what was yours. But back to Tennessee, an 8-year-old kid, I go into the arcade, and I proceed to spend $40 in that arcade. I go buy about $3 or $4 worth of food, and then I spent the rest of my money. Well, I start looking, and I'm like, I don't have any money. I call my grandmother, and she's not happy. She said, I'm going to Western Union, $50. It's all the money I have left. But I didn't have enough time in Memphis to pick it up. So we get to Knoxville, Tennessee, and that's where I get the Western Union money, and I try to start being a little smarter with my money. We went through, which became one of my favorites, not in this time, but later on, Texarkana was one of my favorite stops. It was just a 20-30 minute blowover stop, but they had a restaurant in the convenience store, and it was an amazing restaurant. And then, spoiler alert, there's one lady that I've seen every time that worked there, and she was awesome. Seen her about 30 times. She said she saw me more than she saw some people who actually lived there. And I was just going through. Then I go to Dallas, Texas, and you want to talk about an eye-opening experience as a kid, it'd be an eye-opening experience as an adult. Walking into Dallas and driving in, you see the big buildings, and back then Dallas at night, it was lit up, the building with the green X. So you would have a green. just lit up the buildings. And then I go walk. Once I get in there, we had like a 9-hour layover because we missed the connecting because our bus was late and they don't hold the bus that you're supposed to connect to. So we had to wait 9 hours. They gave us no food vouchers, no nothing. We were on our own. So I go walk outside of Dallas, Texas a little bit, not too far away from the Greyhound station. I'm 8 years old. I'm trying to get fresh air. But I swear in about a half a block radius, people tried to sell me t-shirts, hats, cards, drugs. And I bought a hat because I was a Dallas Cowboy fan. And of course, because you're in Dallas, you overpay tremendously for that hat. I think I spent 20 bucks on that hat. And this is 1991. So, yeah. And then when we start getting closer to Arizona, I partnered up because what I do is you partner up with someone. I'm 8 years old. I need help. So I pay attention to who's on the bus. Hey, how you doing? Where are you going? And I'd find someone who was going far away. And like, hey, you don't mind if I kind of like tag along with you? And they're like, no, that's fine. I think they know. I think they knew how young I was. I was 8. But I don't think they were saying anything. But really not a lot of cool people. But when I get to a little closer to Arizona, I had a guy who tells me, I know you're too young to be on here. And basically wanted to know what was going on. So I kind of cry because like I said, I'm scared and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know how I made it that far. And I had no money at this point. So like this gentleman, older black guy, amazing guy, just took me under his wing. And he was going to California, but not as far as me, but close enough. I think I only had 4 more hours after we parted ways until I made it to where I was supposed to. And he told me, he said, look, this might not be the last time you ever have to be on here. You need to be careful. He's trying to school me on what not to do, how I shouldn't be trusting people, how I got lucky that he's such a nice guy because I shouldn't be trusting him. And yeah, that was an amazing guy. And he looked out for me. And then once I get to California, I start getting feel a little easier. I call my grandmother and she's like, all right, I'm glad you made it to California. You just call me when you get to your mom's. My mom was waiting for me. I called her. I said, hey, I'm about like 6 hours away. And of course, like my mom, she's like, okay, yeah, I'll be there. Because you have to keep in touch with them because, especially where you're going, because they don't know you're delayed. Like a 9-hour delay. I'm supposed to get there. Like that trip was supposed to be a 4.5-day trip. Turned out to be about 5.5 days because layovers and unexpected things happen to your bus. Like these buses, these are not the luxury Greyhounds they have now. There was no charging ports. You were lucky to have a bus that had air conditioner working on it. And you had the bathrooms that stunk like high heaven. And when you go through Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, it doesn't matter if you have air conditioner or not, it's still gonna feel like it's not working because it's hot as hell in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. But when I got to my mom's, she was happy to see me and I was happy to see her. Honestly though, I was mainly happy to be the hell off the bus. It was exhausting. I was 8 and I was glad I made through it. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be but another 3 to 6 months. I don't know exactly when I'd be back on a Greyhound, heading back to live with my grandmother. And that will be a story for another day. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing my Greyhound stories at a young age and what I went through. I would appreciate all your support, guys. This is kind of like my therapy to kind of get this off my chest, but it's also kind of the stuff that's made me who I am today. And you'll see my DoorDash content. And I mean, all these early things that kind of led me to where I am now. And I'm happy where I am now. And me and my mom get along great. And my grandmother, God rest her soul, me and her made amends. I mean, she was the one who raised me. My grandmother was my mother. My mother was kind of like my mom / big sister until I became much older. And then we finally got that mother-son relationship. And it took a lot on both of our parts because I had a lot of resentment towards her She knew I had a lot of resentment towards her. And the only way me and her were going to be able to make our relationship work was for both of us to kind of make peace with what happened and to accept it and to move on. And that's what we did. So drop comments below. Tell me what you think. And if you rode a greyhound, let me know how your experience was.